Introduce yourself. Who is Kevin King?
Well, that's okay.
I know that's a big
Short
question.
version. This the short version.
Mhm.
I'm originally from the South Side of Chicago, Chatham, born and raised. I've been playing music since I was three. Started in the church. Started on piano slash organ. Eventually moved on to playing saxophone and jazz and all those crazy things. Eventually, I started playing flute, clarinet, oboe, and bassoon. And I'm an improviser. I love improvising, and that's a big part of my composition style as well. I'm trying to combine composition and pre-written things and written things in the moment, spontaneous composition. Because I believe spontaneous composition and composition are one and the same, and also experimenting with different types of ensembles. Like I'm writing for brass quintet right now. It would be cool to write. I've also written pieces for orchestra, and I've written pieces for string quartets. One day I want to write a piece for like tabla and sitar. That would be really cool. But yeah, I'm just a composer, improviser, and human being. That's it.
And we love to hear it. Mentors like Willie Pickens and Orbit Davis. You also kind of leaned on the fact of improvisation being a big impact in your composition. What did you take from those relationships that show up in your music today?
Well, you said Orbit Davis. That's a big one. So he runs an ensemble called the Chicago Jazz Philharmonic, which I play in very often. And that's a group that is considered a third stream ensemble, which is the combination of jazz and classical music, which I could say is basically what I do in a nutshell. But I mean, I combine a lot more than just jazz and classical. I have like reggae influences, Afro beat, funk, metal, rock, punk, all that is in there. But just the idea that you don't have to be pigeonholed into like one genre. You pigeonholed into one sound. You can be influenced by all sounds, and for that matter, influenced by everything in life. Like the piece I wrote, "Wonder of a Child," is about me teaching kids and the different experiences those kids have. Um, so yeah, Orbit taught me that music is not only about becoming a great musician, but meeting people and cultivating community and cultivating relationships. Um, but yeah, and he was always fun about it. It was never like you got to play the notes right. It was never that. It was always have a good time, and it's a serious business, but don't let that get in the way of having a good time and having fun. Um, but yeah, Orbit Davis, great mentor.
When it comes to the specific piece with the Chromatic Brass Collective, can you speak on that a little bit and your creative process towards it?
Of course, like I said before, I work with a lot of children, a lot of different kids, different ages, like from like kindergarten level to like eighth grade, about to go to high school kids, and they all have different experiences with how they hear music, how they see music, how they experience life. And I just noticed things like, when you say in kindergarten or see a sunset, they're just like, whoa, what is that? This is the coolest thing I've ever seen. But, us as adults, we're always like, oh, that's just the sun, whatever. I got, to pay some bills. I got to go to work. And it just made me really think about and contemplate the way I view the world and just taking things for granted. Like waking up this morning, being able to talk to you and meet you, Madison, being able to meet Portia. And yeah, just my exploration of those thoughts. That's how the piece was basically created. I just heard these themes, these melodic fragments and cells, and I wanted to kind of, in a way, create this soundscape where you see the child experiencing different things. So, like the theme in one way is like the first time they saw something, but then like later in the piece, the theme is like, oh, now I'm experiencing the same thing, but with new context, if that makes sense. So it's like you take the same melodic fragment and make it sound like bravery, but then make it sound like fear, and but then make it sound like courage. You know, all these different feelings from the same thing.
It almost inspires me to ask, like you said that you mostly focused on woodwind type instruments and with CBC and this piece, how that's kind of encouraged that um curation of like freedom of just like trying something new and seeing that like newness when it comes to um like writing a piece for a different ensemble like you're not really used to.
Yeah, I mean, I've written for brass instruments in the past. I write for a lot of horn-based groups, you know, like funk horn sections with trombone, trumpet, saxophone, baritone sax. I also write a lot for big band, so like, you know, four trumpets, three trombones, sometimes four trombones, depending on the budget, of course. But I've never written for like a brass quintet. This is my first ever brass quintet. Um, and the way that I think about it is because a lot of people would approach writing a brass quintet in a way where they would follow the tradition. I did listen to a bunch of brass quintets before I started writing the piece, and I was just like, that's not really the vibe I want to go for. Because regardless of the instrument that we play, we're all making music. The trumpet is just an inanimate object. The tuba is an inanimate object. The trombone is an inanimate object. But Portia makes the tuba something special. We as people make the instrument something special. So even though it's a different instrument, even something I'm not exactly familiar with, I have written music. And I mean, like I said, it's Portia that's making the instrument what it is. And then Portia will tell me if I'm like incorrectly writing for the tuba. Yeah, let me know. But I do my best to write music that people find enjoyable to listen to and enjoyable to play. But yeah, it's been really cool to experience the brass family and to really ingrain myself with the brass tradition, brass culture, and taking influences from all brass music, not just classical brass, but you know, like a brass band, New Orleans brass band stuff, and all everything brass. So yeah,
Love a
that's
brass. We love a brass for sure. Feels like you're unafraid for collaboration and connecting with people and really like opening up the world around you through your music. When it comes specifically to CBC, how does that collaboration align with your values as an artist and a composer?
well, I can tell you guys are really trying to change things, change the guard, and trying to introduce new music and new ideas to the world. Because a lot of times, especially like when I'm hearing these cycles of Chicago Symphony and all the big name groups, they're kind of just playing the same music over and over again. Going through the same, Beethoven Fifth, Shostakovich. We heard all the pieces. We know what we're talking about here.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, it's just really cool just to give me a platform with great players to like write great music and to introduce new music and introduce new ideas. Especially because I feel like the youth in classical music a lot of time don't really get a lot of platforms to show their music. Like I would love to hear more young African Americans and their pieces presented on big stages. Like I go to see the Chicago Symphony all the time, but I don't think I've ever heard a piece played by African Americans or a piece or written by African Americans for that matter either. Which sucks. It does because there's so many great composers out there. Like my friend Kevin Day is an amazing composer. Katai Copley. Just so many of my contemporaries are great, and I feel like they deserve a platform, and CBC is one of the organizations who is creating that platform for us, and I appreciate that. I'm sure the other artists appreciates it too. So yeah, like my ideas is to create opportunities as well. Like once I get big or whatever that means, I would love to give other composers opportunities, meet with other composers that are like-minded like us, and create more music and create different perspective, like we were talking about before.
The composers that we know and hear all the time in rotation, like the Beethoven, Shostakovich, Tchaikovsky, um, they had like different periods in the styles of their writing. Do you have that, or are you going through that, or like how would talk about your progression, as a composer?
Oh, that's a very good question. I don't really think about that as much because I just kind of focus more in the moment and just like really not letting the moment pass me by. That's a very improvisational concept where like you want to be spontaneous. You don't want to think about what previously happened. You always want to just keep improving and moving forward. But if I did think about that, uh, I would say my compositional journey probably started relatively early. I think I composed my first song when I was like 7 or 8 or something like that, and it wasn't that complicated. It was like some kind of blues, I knew 3 notes or something at the time. I can't even remember, but I used those 3 notes
That's so
and I made a
cute.
song, right? So if
Yeah.
I compare to where now, I'm definitely I got more than 3 notes. But I would say I went through periods of I wrote a lot of complex music that didn't really say much. It was more so just like a showcase of technical ability
The
and
flashiness.
yeah, flashiness. And I was like, hey, look what I can do. Or like, I can play these really hard chord changes and I can play really fast. And then people will listen to it and go like, whoa, that's really hard. But it wasn't hitting what I was trying to get there. I was trying to get into the heart. I was trying to get out of the intellectual, the brain, and get more into the heart. So I feel like now I'm getting to the point where I can have those complexities, but it doesn't overshadow the message of the song. It doesn't overshadow the purity of the message. Because essentially, I feel like the song is more important than technical showcasing. You know, so yeah, I'm trying to get basically into that mode where the technique is a tool to uh, demonstrate the message, and if it gets in the way of that message, then take it back. Like break
Yeah.
it down. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Um, Another question I had, so a lot of the music that you've written have been for like different ensembles and stuff. Have you ever written for music for other genres of art, whether it's film or multimedia or dance or anything like that? Or do you have any plans to do anything like that?
Oh yeah, I love all forms of media. I feel like us as artists, we should collaborate way more. I feel like a big issue, like when I was in school, was like every community, every niche sector was like very segmented and segregated.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I felt like all the jazz people didn't know any of the classical people. The classical people didn't know the pop people, the country people. We
Yeah.
all didn't know each other, right? So I remember when I wrote my piece, the Ten City Symphony. The whole point was to try to get all those communities on one big project, and I mean I succeeded. It was hard though because I had to go out and meet everybody, network. Like, hey, you play violin, right? My name is Kevin King. You play viola. My name is Kevin King. I have to do the whole politician.
You're
Uh,
campaigning and
yeah,
stuff.
exactly. Do you want to join my project? That kind of. So I got a lot of no's because it wasn't a big budget, but the project succeeded, and I got everybody who wanted to work on it, and even the people that said no, it was successful because I met them, and I met all these different communities. If I didn't do that project, I would be more in the dark, and I wouldn't have learned as much. So I learned a lot from that project. But yeah, I compose for pretty much anything. I mean, I love anime. I love movies. I would love to write for anime soundtrack. I'm a former gamer. I don't game anymore. I don't have time because composing takes all my time and playing and practicing. But when back in the day when I did play games, I would have loved to write, a video game soundtrack. So any video game companies, call me. I'm ready to write the whole soundtrack.
You know,
Um, yeah. But yeah, and my band is a very malleable group. I mean, we play like psychedelic, like rock, jazz, funk, fusion kind of thing. It's like it's all over the place. Really genreless. Yeah, because like I said before, I feel like you shouldn't be pigeonholed into one way of doing things. Like be aware of Bach and be aware of all the greats, but don't feel like you have to write like them. You can be yourself. You can use all of your influences. If you like BTS, use some of them BTS influences in your classical composition. It might be cool. Experiment with it. So my whole thing is just be open-minded and don't close off possible opportunities because you think you should, perform one way or you should write one way. So yeah, I'm open to pretty much anything within reason, but pretty much anything.
That's okay.
That's awesome.
Tell us about the regime and how that's inspired your work leading towards CBC and the consortium.
Okay, so Kevin King regime is essentially like me finally taking ownership of what I've wanted to do for a long time. Because earlier in my musical journey, when I was younger, like high school, late high school, early college, I don't think I had the confidence to pursue the musical ideas I was hearing. Because, I had all these, older cats telling me, like, you should sound this way. And, traditionalists going like, stop listening to that crap, listen to this. This is the real music. This is what you should be playing. But Kevin King regime is like what I was trying to do then, but I didn't have the gusto or the know-how to say, I listen to King Gizzard and that sounds cool. I listen to Sun Ra and that's a cool influence. So yeah, I have like-minded individuals. My friend Shravan Ragaram and bass player Nick Littman. Shravan's a drummer. But yeah, I've known him since undergrad. And yeah, we were in a band together previously. That band has disbanded. And in that band, I had the same issue. Like some of the members of the band were like, we want to be a commercial and we want to make a lot of money. And you're playing too many weird things and composing too many weird, songs. We don't want to play that. Yeah, the regime is essentially, making music for a higher purpose, for a higher reason. And making music with that open mind that I talked about previously and not closing off opportunities, allowing individuals to try things that, on paper is like, man, that's not going to work at all. Like a polka with, a punk rock drum beat is not going to work. Why are you doing that? But like, why not? Let's see what happens. You're not going to know unless you do it. Right. Mm-hmm. So yeah, regime is basically like a science lab, a science experiment, to follow our ears without any judgment. Mm-hmm. And I feel like that's what I want to go for as a human being too. Just like people being themselves unapologetically. I feel like the music should be like that. And I feel like the way we treat each other, we should be like that. Yeah, and the Kevin King regime also has a jam session where that's the same goal. The same goal is like, I hate all the jazz jam sessions where they're like, you got to play, there will never be another you. You got to play the standards and you got to play it like John Coltrane or you're wrong. No. So you can come in, you only play guitar for 2 days and 3 notes. You can play at the jam session. You're not out, Yeah, I just want an open-minded, open community. Yeah, that's essentially what the Kevin King regime is. If I had to summarize it, which is funny because regime is like the complete opposite of what that means, which is why that's a cool name. It's
Yeah.
like a paradox or the opposite.
You make a regime of your own, you know? I think that's really cool. Like the fact that you said that like someone can play a guitar but like rock on that one note and like jam on that. Like that's really cool.
Right.
I'm based in LA right now, and like having those types of spaces where you can just be free and just like explore music at your level where it is, like that's like very few and far between. So knowing that there's something like that out there is like really um inspiring. You have a debut album called to action that's coming up in 2025, which is super exciting and I can't wait to hear.
Oh, it already came out.
Oh,
I gotta
that's
update my
even better. That's
website.
even better. You know what? Go and listen to it on all platforms. Amen. Um, does this,
I gotta update my website. That's for Madison.
hey, that's my bad. But how does it feel to release your debut album? And then on top of that, how does that connect to your larger body of work through your artistic statements?
Oh, it feels great to finally not be one of those guys that says coming out soon, you know. So it feels great that when somebody asks me like, "Do you have any music out?" I'm like, "Yeah, check out this record," you know. But yeah, that record was like 4 or 5 years in the making. I recorded it in 2020. I've been working on it since then. You know, album art, production, some overdubs. I got a couple like singers. I added that later. But yeah, that album was essentially like an internal struggle within myself because I just felt like, you know, all this stuff was happening in the world and I was just like, bro, I'm just a musician, you know, like what can I do? Like, I don't have a say. But then, you know, I looked at all the greats, all my influences, Charles Mingus, you know, John Coltrane, Beethoven, all those cats. And they, you know, write pieces to make a difference. They write pieces to question and to get people to think about what's going on. So that's essentially what that album was. Just like I didn't even really think about it. Like the piece wrote itself essentially. All the pieces. Like I remember I used to hear stories about cats having like an out of body experience. Or like I didn't write the music. The music wrote me, and I was like, that's some bull, right?
Yeah,
But it's true.
it happens. It
So that was the first time that ever happened. I talked about like Portia's earlier question where she asked me like my development as a composer. Yeah, like at that point before that album, like I think I was writing from like an intellectual point of view. Like I'm doing this, I'm going to do this. Everything was intentional, right? But with those songs, like that didn't happen. Like I just wrote stuff down and I was like, whoa, what is this? You know, I was like a audience member to my own album. Um, but yeah, it's great to have it out. I'm super proud. I'm glad I got it out before, you know, 10 years because I probably wouldn't have released it then. But yeah, just happy to have it out.
happens. Well, congratulations. That's really exciting.
Yes, congratulations.
Well, no.
That's
Okay.
okay. And that's okay.
It's on Bandcamp and it's on YouTube. It's
Okay.
not on Spotify for various reasons. I'm not gonna go into the politics of it. You know,
You can go back and forth.
you know it's not on Spotify. It's not on any of the other major streaming platforms either for various reasons. I feel like it's very important for artists to be supported, and I feel like for music to not be a viable resource, and that's just crazy to me. You know, like that nowadays you can't sell your music at all. Like that's not even a viable option to make passive income. And I feel like we have to figure out a way to get that back. I don't know how we're gonna do it, but we got to figure out a way to bring that back because I'm not just accepting that.
Someone hears the piece that you're making for the consortium years from now. What do you hope that it says about this moment, musically, socially, and spiritually?
I would hope that they would just search their own feelings and not care what I thought
Mm.
so much. Because I feel like that's the whole point of what I'm trying to do as a composer, as a musician. I want people to feel comfortable being themselves and having their own opinion. Even if they hate my piece, they're like, this piece sucks. I want them to feel comfortable saying that and not feeling like, that's blasphemy. That's Kevin. You can't talk about Kevin King like that. You know, like that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because I feel like that's the environment we're in now. Like I can't say that about certain composers. Like I could be like, the Heroica Symphony, that's overrated. Tristan and Isolde, the Tristan chord is lame. I can't say that. People are like, he doesn't know what he's talking about. But I want my piece to be like, it's a chill environment. If you enjoyed the piece, cool. If you didn't enjoy the piece, cool. If you got something out of it, cool. If you got nothing out of it, it didn't make anything happen, cool. That's it, just feeling comfortable enough to be yourself and tell the truth.
What does like the future of brass music look like to you, and how do you want to be part of shaping that?
It can go in so many different directions. I feel like if groups like CBC exist and groups that are like-minded, trying to push new artists forward, push new ideas forward, I feel like it can be really progressive, and the music can really develop into something we can't even imagine. Because I feel like brass is only limited to us, our imagination. Because if we wanted to sound like just like the same old brass quintets we've been playing for the last 50, 100 years, okay, cool. We can do that for another 100 years, right? But what if we didn't do that? What if we tried to add influences from everything? What could the music sound like then? It's up to us, really. If we continue to do this, if we continue to push new artists, new ideas, yeah, it could be a progressive new music, awesome, right? Or it can go the other direction where it's like we're still playing the same 5 pieces, the same 4 pieces. I'm not gonna name them. You know what we're talking about. I don't want to throw no shade at nobody.
No, you're right.
So it can go either way.
Who's like your biggest inspiration like right now? Like I've heard a lot of like Bach, Coltrane, and like respect and peace and love to all of them, but who's someone who's currently in the field who inspires you as a composer?
Currently so like living.
Yeah.
Oh, that's hard, man. Because I ain't gonna lie, I listen to a lot of dead people.
Yeah.
A lot of dead Villa Lobos. Yeah. Okay, obviously somebody else.
I love a song. I love a Coltrane. I love a Bach, so
That's alive, man. Oh, like I said, Kevin Day, man. I love his compositions, man. He's great. And he's like somewhat, close to my age. It's really cool to see somebody, really taking brass writing, taking wind ensemble writing to that next level. I'm trying to think other composers. I mean, other contemporaries, like jazz contemporaries, Marquise Hill, he was taught by the same elementary school teacher as me, and he's, traveling the world now doing great things. Joel Ross, shout out to him. He's great. Basically the Chicago community, the AACM is cool. That's the Association for the Advancement of Creative Musicians, and they've been, yeah, they're having a 60th anniversary. That's cool. Yeah, there's so many great modern composers. My friend Nicholas Kaplan just released the album. That's great. Yeah, so many great young musicians in Chicago. I was just going to say the Chicago music scene, and I'm not going to say all of them. I'm sorry I didn't name everybody. Don't get mad at me, y'all. I love all y'all. All of them.
We'll put them in the caption if you want.
They will get mad at me like, you missed me. And I'm like, yeah, I know. I forgot everybody.
My last question would be, when you were talking about the regime and like your like kind of philosophy with that, would you say that that's like advice that you would give to up and coming composers or people that are trying to enter this profession, to have a open mind and not close yourself off from different styles and things like that?
Yes, I would tell people to of all ages. I feel like especially the old heads too, 'cause they're the main ones that are going like, young cats, you have to learn the tradition. You have to learn the Bach fugues, counterpoint, and I mean that's great. Yeah, you definitely have to learn that. I'm not saying you don't, but you can learn a lot from BTS. You can learn a lot from listen. I don't even like NBA YoungBoy, okay, but you can learn something from listening to him too. Learn something, listen to Rod Wave. See, if you cut off any musical opportunity experience, you're limiting yourself, and your music is going to sound limited. In my opinion, I feel like you should listen to everything, and you're not going to like everything. I'm not saying you should like everything, but you should experience it so you can have an opinion about it. There's people who just don't listen to only listen to three things to one composer, and then they have an opinion about all the music out there. And I'm like, bro, have you even listened to a Kendrick Lamar album and you're saying it's not good? Like, come on. Like, at least listen to the verse before you have an opinion about it. Mm-hmm. That's all I'm saying. So yeah, have an open mind because that's the only way music is going to progress and change. If we're listening to the music of the day, the music of the era. And that's kind of hypocritical coming from a person that listens to only dead musicians. But you get what I'm saying. Like, listen to what's going on today so that music sounds like today. I don't want music to sound like 1635. It should sound like 2025.
Definitely. Awesome.